Fantasy playoffs is approaching really fast. We're a little over halfway through the season right now, and in fantasy, we're a little over 3/4 of the way through the season. Playoffs usually start around week 23 and week 24. We're in week 19 right now. So in this video, I'm going to give you some players that I think you should be adding looking forward to next week to hopefully maximize your schedule, or players that I think that have long-term value that you should be adding in your 10, 12, or 14 team leagues. This has been a really good season so far this year, guys. Leave a comment below to let me know who your best players have been this year and what your current record is. My name's Mike, and let's jump into the video. I want to start this video off by apologizing for not having Slafkovsky in an earlier video. His roster percentage is starting to skyrocket right now, up around 20% over the last week. He's been extremely good, but he's been in this position for the last week or 2 weeks, skating on the top line, skating on the top power play unit, and playing massive minutes. He's currently playing in a really good role with Caulfield and Suzuki, and that's what you want to see from players, especially players that are on bad teams. Are they being given the opportunity to skate on the top line, top power play unit, and playing big minutes? I feel like Montreal is playing it right with Slafkovsky, and he's arguably one of the biggest sleepers going into next season, and he's showing out right now. In his last 25 games played, he's been moved up to the top line, top power play unit, as I mentioned, 9 goals, 11 assists, 8 points on the power play, and 20 total points, while adding 43 shots, 38 hits, and 20 blocks. His peripherals have been extremely good, and his minutes have been good, playing over 18 minutes per night, just under 19 minutes. If he can continue with this elite shot and hit mix, as well as adding in some blocks, while also putting up a bunch of points, he's becoming like a Boone Jenner type player, which is someone I'm going to mention in this video that covers literally every single category. He's a big 6'3", 230-pound winger. It wouldn't surprise me next year if we saw a 150 shot, 200 plus hit season. He's becoming a star in this league. I love that he has a great mix of peripherals, like I mentioned. I think for the rest of the season, give him the minutes, the opportunity, that Montreal has no competition. Slafkovsky's going to be playing a big role, and he should be a top 75 skater for the rest of the season. I would definitely be looking at him in your 12 plus team leagues. I don't think he's a 10 plus team league ad just yet, but if you're in a 10 plus team league and he's available, let me know who your worst players are and what you should do, whether you should drop that player and add Slafkovsky, and I'll give you some advice. Viktor Arvidsson has returned from the injury reserve. There's a lot of hype in our Discord right now about what to do with Viktor Arvidsson. For me, I'm not in any rush to add him, but I do think it's worthwhile depending on how deep your roster is. Now with Arvidsson, he hasn't played at all this season. He's returning from a back injury. It's really surprising to see his roster percentage already up at 42%, given Slafkovsky's a little bit lower, and I like his upside quite a bit more. But with Arvidsson, he had a phenomenal year last year. Now, he's returned back to his regular spot, line 2, power play 2, on a line with Deneau and Trevor Moore. Moore's been one of the best goal-scoring players on the Kings this year. But for Arvidsson, he had a really strong 2022-2023 season. And if you remember, he had a really good second half of the season. In 77 games last year, 26 goals, 59 points, 25 points in the power play. But the big thing with Arvidsson, and it's been a thing through his entire career, is that elite shot volume. He surpassed 228 shots last season. And over in the last 30 games of 2022, 13 goals, 25 points, and 110 shots on goal. His second half was extremely strong. Now, I think with him right now, and this is what I've been telling people in Discord, it's going to be a slow burn. If he's not good in the first 5-6 games, don't panic. He hasn't played at all this season. You have to think that there's a lot of players that have been playing 40-50 games. They have their legs under them. They've been playing at the NHL pace for the last 3, 4, 5 months, where Arvidsson hasn't. So it's going to be a slow burn, but just be patient with him. You want to be monitoring his minutes. If he's playing 10, 12, 14 minutes, I would probably be a little bit skeptical, but see how his minutes are being played out and see if he gets an opportunity again on that top power play unit, where he had 25 power play points just last season. He has the upside to be a top 75 to 100 skater rest of season, but for me, if I'm looking to add a player, it's definitely Slafkovsky first and then Viktor Arvidsson. At the time of recording, just 36% of you are subscribed to the channel, so if you've enjoyed the content so far, make sure you subscribe to stay up to date with all the content that we're going to be pumping out for the rest of the season. In addition, we have updated our projections for the rest of the season. If you're interested in gaining access to that, head on over to our Patreon. The link will be in the description. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment in this video or simply message me on Discord. Let's jump back into the video, guys. We have now returned back to Artturi Lehkonen season. He's a player that I like each and every season. He's usually on my fantasy rosters, and I'm happy to see now that he's returned back from his injury, he's moved back up to the top power play unit. My only concern right now, and I guess this is likely the reason why his roster percentage still isn't over 50%, is that he's not skating on the top line with McKinnon and Rantanen. It's still Drew in there. But what I like from Lehkonen right now and moving forward is that he is now on the top power play unit. And throughout his career as an Avalanche, he has around a 30% power play point share. So when he's playing, 30% of his points are on the power play, and that's what you want from a player that's on a team with this much offense. He's currently on the second line with Wood and Ross Colton, a very good 5-on-5 players, so hopefully that helps him a little bit. And so far this season, he has dealt with injury, 19 games played, but he has 5 goals, 14 points, 49 shots on goal, and 27 hits. But the key indicator here is how good this Avalanche team really is. They're currently first in the NHL with goals for. They rank 8th for Corsi for and 7th for power play goals for per 60. All of their rates are within top 10 in the NHL, and Artturi Lehkonen is going to be a beneficiary of playing on a top team like the Colorado Avalanche. Now, if he does get moved up to the top line, I would say that he becomes a top 75 player rest of the season. But for right now, playing with Ross Colton and Miles Wood on the second line and just skating on the top power play unit, I would say right now he's about a top 100 to 120 skater. So I wouldn't be desperately looking to add him in 12-team leagues, but in those 14-team leagues, if he's available, he's definitely a guy you want to be trying to roster because he's getting exposure to one of the best power plays in the entire NHL and the best offense in the entire NHL. Colton Parayko is actually the only defenseman to make this list. There wasn't really any viable defenseman that I could be recommending for you to add, but Parayko here is a solid defenseman 4 option that you can be adding that can give you solid peripherals each and every night. He's a top pair defenseman, the #1 guy in St. Louis. He does skate on the second power play. He had some time spent on the top power play unit, but Torrey Krug's actually been quite a bit better recently, someone I recommended a couple weeks ago. And with Colton Parayko, over his last 30 games, he's been playing a ton of minutes, over 24 minutes per night. And you've heard me mention this before, when you're looking to pick up a defenseman that's not on the top power play unit, you want to make sure they're playing around 23 or 24 minutes, because that means their peripherals are going to be extremely good. And that's what we're seeing from Parayko. So over that time, 24 minutes time on ice ranks him 19th amongst defensemen, 60 shots on goal ranks him 25th, 88 blocks ranks him 3rd amongst all defensemen, and 34 hits ranks him 60th. So for a defenseman with a size like his, he doesn't hit very much, but the block numbers are where I really want to hone in on, because if you're in leagues that has points that counts blocks, he is a very, very solid defenseman 4 option. His current 82 game pace, very well rounded, similar to Darnell Nurse, 31 points, 157 shots, 212 blocks, and 104 hits. A very high floor defenseman. He's going to get you a minimum of 5-6 points per night with a ceiling of 17 to 20. That's what you want from defensemen, especially to round out your D-core. I know a lot of people struggle with having thin defenseman cores. This is definitely a guy you could be rounding out as a defenseman 4 option around your defenseman who will be getting you those power play points, goals, assists that you likely have on your roster. A really interesting season for Mason Marchment right now, and someone that I've been a fan of in the past, but not really. He always seems to have a really high shooting percentage, but he continues to be a stud offensively on this Dallas Stars team who is extremely deep all the way down the lineup. The last I looked, I think they have 9 players that have 10 plus goals, and Marchment is slowly approaching the 20 goal mark right now. Now he's skating on the second line with Matt Duchene and Tyler Seguin. He's on the second power play unit and plays around 15 minutes per night, just a little under. So that is concerning for a guy that's 40% rostered, but look at this 82 game pace, 27 goals, 66 points, 154 shots, and just under 100 hits. Now, if you're in a league with PIMS, if you're in a league with plus minus, he's a plus 20 this season with 40 penalty minutes. So he does cover those categories as well. But over his last 30 games, he continued his offensive success, 9 goals, 29 points. It's pretty crazy to see a guy that plays under 15 minutes per night put up numbers like this. Give him a chance. Give him 18 minutes per night and just see what he can do and see if he can run with it. But the Stars for the rest of the season, I always like to take players that are on really good teams, especially if they're playing less minutes and less their top power play and line 1 like Slafkovsky. But with Marchment here, a really good Dallas Stars team that's dominating each and every night. They're having very, very strong games. And now that Miro Heiskanen's healthy, I think that almost helps his production even more. He has a very solid floor with the hit and shot mix, as well as a solid ceiling with him scoring a ton of goals this season, on pace for almost 30. Definitely a guy I'd be looking to roster in 12 plus team leagues. We're now kind of forward looking to next week, but also I think a guy that could be added, I would say, over Arvidsson, Marchment, and the other guys mentioned on this list, Boone Jenner. I'm very surprised to see him under 50%. And the reason why he caught my eye is because they have an extremely good schedule this week. So it's pretty much a win-win situation if you can add him right now. He's healthy. He's been back for 8 games. He's playing line 1, power play 1, and he's back to playing the most insane minutes of forwards right now. But I'll get into that in a bit. Columbus, 4-game schedule coming up next week with 4 off nights. One thing I want to emphasize, and one thing I always try to emphasize when picking up players, if you're going to pick them up early, make sure that you have your matchup likely to win. If you're struggling in your matchup right now and there's a chance that you could lose, I don't know if I would waste an ad for someone for the next week. It really depends on where you're at, but definitely be assessing that. See if you can win your matchup. See if you're in a solid playoff spot and you need a big win next week. But with Jenner here, since returning, 20 minutes average time on ice, he plays in all facets of the game. He plays penalty kill, power play, and on the top line. In his last game against Ottawa, he played over 26 minutes and had 9 shots. But in those 8 games, 25 shots on goal, 44 attempts, 23 hits, 8 blocks, and just 3 points. But I'm not concerned at all because he's been hot over the last couple of games. He's been shooting the puck a ton. He's a guy that covers all peripheral categories while playing a huge amount of minutes. A guy I love in category leagues, 3+ shots per game, 2+ hits per game, and 1+ block per game, while also putting up one of the best face-off percentages in the league at 55%. There's so much to like from Boone Jenner. I think you can justify adding him in 10-team leagues. Out of any player in this list, he's definitely the most capable of being added in 10+ team leagues. But in 12+ team leagues, if he's available right now, guys, a 4-game schedule, 4 off nights next week, as well as a guy that could be a very strong long-term hold. And piggybacking off of that really good schedule this week, if you want to get ahead for next week and add a guy that's going to have 4 games and 4 games on the off nights, Kirill Marchenko of the Columbus Blue Jackets. So like I mentioned, only add him if you're winning your matchup this week. If you think you have it in the bag, I would add him early. If not, wait till Sunday and make the move. But with Marchenko right now, you're getting a guy that's pretty low rostered at just 9%, which means he's likely available to be streamed, skating line 2, power play 1. And now with Boone Jenner, as I mentioned, and Zach Werenski healthy, it should really only help this Columbus offense. I have no idea what's going to happen with the trade deadline in the next little bit because I know the GM just got fired. So it's going to be interesting to see how the roster shakes out. But for right now, it doesn't matter going into next week. With Marchenko, 15 goals on the season, ranks him 2nd on the Columbus Blue Jackets, and 130 shots is the most on the team. You're going to get a guy that's going to be playing over 16 minutes per night on the top power play unit. He's going to have all the offensive looks and give you a bunch of shots coming up next week. Definitely a guy I want to be looking to add, but only if you're winning your matchups and you think you have a chance to win this week that you can use to leverage your matchup next week and get ahead of your opponents. That will do it for the Week 19 must-add players video. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.